Computer's been pretty good at outlining this whole thing. I've said numerous times, although it's pointing to World War III, it's more of a brush fire type thing, not like one or two. In other words, you're getting like North Korea and South Korea, China, Taiwan, Thailand, Cambodia, Middle East, Ukraine. It's not one giant force. War only comes when the economy turns down. When everybody's fat and happy, you don't worry about war. The world economy is heading into a real serious point into 2028. And we're at the stage now where we're going into a sovereign debt crisis. Now, I know a lot of people keep talking about the dollar, it's going to crash, the debt. We have the biggest economy. And to service the debt is less of a crisis here than it is in Japan or Europe or even China for that matter. The U.S. would be the last to fall. I think the sucker punch that's coming is that when you talk about debt, they don't even consider the Middle East. The presumption that the Middle East is flush with cash, that's just not the case. During COVID, oil went down to $6.50, and the Gulf states ended up borrowing extensively. Probably the worst of all was Iraq. Now, this explains the strategy of Iran. And if you don't understand the economics, it may just look confusing. As you know, we have offices in Dubai. They sent more missiles and drones at Dubai than they did Israel. Why? Because Dubai became basically the new Switzerland. When the Swiss had froze money of Russians, you knew Putin. Europe kind of went nuts and Switzerland shot itself in the head. It's one thing to freeze the assets of a country. Most of the assets that are frozen of this 300 billion, they're private assets. Houses, yachts, has nothing to do with the government. They said, well, you're an oligarch and you were friends with Putin. It's like, okay, fine. Yeah, they're going to put you in jail and they're going to put all your friends who knew you in jail. It just doesn't work that way. And why I say Switzerland shot itself in the head, it's no longer neutral and they set off a massive exodus. They cannot be trusted. So capital moved. The two places it was going was Dubai and Singapore. So Iran in the Straits of Hormuz and attacking oil infrastructure in the Gulf states. Why would they do that? Because basically all the Gulf states have massive debts. If they can't sell the oil, they can't service the debt. That creates the banking crisis. So it's much more deeper than people realize. In Dubai, they had a $30 billion AI installation. Amazon, OpenAI, you name it, they're there. They sent drones in to attack it. They didn't permanently damage it, but they took it offline for about a week. We couldn't even wire money to our clients. The whole banking system went down. This is what's really going on over there. So this is part of that psychological war tactic. The Ayatollah used it in Iran and Europe's using it against Russia right now. It tends to polarize societies. I mean, Hitler used it. You turn one group against another. As long as you do that, then they all don't get together and come after you. So everybody's fighting, and that's what you want, to retain power. Part of the problem is that once you give power to anybody in a central government, to retain that power, they always want more. Just look at the SEC. Every time there's a crash, well, we could have prevented it if we had this power. So each crash comes and they get more and more power. And this is just the way it goes. If you look at the EU, they have interfered in the British referendum about Scotland separating. They were the ones sent people in to supposedly count the votes, all rigged. It went after Bolsonaro in Italy because he wanted to separate. Went after him criminally so he couldn't run. You see the same thing with Le Pen in France. They went and interfered in the Romanian election. And they just did the same thing in Hungary. They publicly even threatened that if the AfD had won in Germany, they would overturn it. So this idea we live in a democracy, free society, it's all bullshit. And look at what Ursula has said after they removed Orban out of Hungary. To sell the idea of joining the euro. The fear was maybe Germany could then overpower everybody else. So part of the structure was it had to be a unanimous vote of everybody before any kind of a major change would take place. As soon as Ursula got rid of Orban, what did she come out and say? We need to change this because no one country should be able to prevent us from doing what we want. Everything that was laid out, why the euro, to join it, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be fair, equitable, all bullshit. Systemically, they always seeking more power. In the United States, you start seeing like California talking about separating if a Republican gets in. Unfortunately, our legal system has degenerated to not much better than a third world country, really. It's all politics anymore. So when you get into all of this stuff, you see like Biden, last day of office, outlaws gas water heaters. That's undemocratic. It's against everything that they promised this country was about. The people are supposed to make the laws, not some president doing an executive order. Congress does not represent us. They represent special interests in themselves. The geopolitical stuff is most likely going to heat up again, and I would expect that to go particularly in August. I'll say this, that how devious Macron is. He flew to China before Trump met with Xi, and he told him, one, that they will not engage in any war outside of European territory. So Middle East, Trump's on his own. But Macron also told Xi, we will not interfere regarding Taiwan. So when Trump got there, that's why the Taiwan issue was on the table. Are you too going to back off? When Trump left, he did say, I suggest the chip companies move to the United States. I will say this, that I was told they knew my position on Russia and the real story of Ukraine, etc. I was told that they agreed with me. We would not be at war with Russia. It will be China. So they see Putin's not really interested in conquering Europe, but they do see China is expanding. And I would say China understands cycles are part of Asian religion. And they know that this is simply their time, that the West is declining because of socialism, etc. I mean, the economic growth of Europe is about half that of the United States. And instead of saying maybe we're the problem, or we need more control. And to the point that they just kill it completely. So economically, it's declining. I mean, just look at the debt expansion of the UK since Starmer's. It's been outrageous. First of all, I've dealt with a lot of these governments and the false thing that they tell themselves. And I've said, look, we're in a debt crisis. This is not going to end well. And they basically say, okay, fine. As an individual, I might not constantly being able to increase my debt on a credit card with no intention of ever paying anything back, but that's personal. As far as government is concerned, with the government, we're different. This is what I hear. So I don't see this changing. This increase in war that you're going to see is part of the process, that as you expand for war, you need more money. You already had Italy coming out concerned they can't sell debt, telling the EU that they should issue debt. But nobody pays anything. Borrow more and more and more. That's it. Pay anything back? Forget that. So what they don't understand is when you're rolling this debt constantly, it costs interest. Our interest expenditures now have hit $1 trillion. So the military budget had to be expanded to 1.5. Interest exceeded military. And then what they don't want to talk about, I warned the central banks their quantitative easing wouldn't work. Why? Because you're assuming you're buying in a 30-year bond, and therefore I'm putting cash into the system. So you're assuming an American is selling it to you. Wrong. We live in a global economy. China dumped all the 30-year bonds. So all this quantitative easing didn't create the inflation. Why? Because the money left the country. All these economic theories that they have developed, efficient markets and Keynesianism, you name it, it's all bogus. Why? Because it was all based upon a fixed exchange rate, the gold standard. So they never considered for one stinking moment about international capital flows. You have a building, you want to sell it for $10 million. I buy it. It just goes from my account to your account. No change. However, if I'm British, I got to bring the money into the country to buy your building. Guess what? I just increased your domestic money supply, and it's got nothing to do with the central bank. They don't understand this. We got offices everywhere. I mean, I've been dealing internationally. I understand capital flows. Your first question is country risk. So I wouldn't invest in Iran. Might be a great investment there. Do I get my money out? If I can't pass the first test of country risk, I don't invest. So, I mean, there's other decisions when you're making this stuff. And every theory that they've done is just domestic, as if we live in a fishbowl. Oh, Fed's increasing the money supply. It should be inflationary. Nothing happened. So then you have people who don't understand that, creating modern monetary theory. See, we can increase the money supply and there's no inflation. Because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's just, the whole thing is just gets me frustrated. And I'm like, you won't have a screw loose or what? I don't know.